substantial development cost that Dominion has incurred to date, I believe emphasizes their commitment to new nuclear, and our development work with Dominion on this project has been all oriented toward one goal, which is delivering the state-of-the-art nuclear project that makes sense for Dominion's customers. Dominion's been a leader in the nuclear power industry for over 40 years. It's 4 nuclear units here in Richmond, 2 at the North End site and 2 at Surrey. We're very proud to be working with Dominion on North End 3, looking forward to delivering this state-of-the-art nuclear station to provide low-cost, reliable, clean electricity to Virginia for more than half a century. Thanks for the opportunity.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Andy Wade, Economic Development Director for Louisa County, which is also the home of North End Nuclear Power Station. Today, North End generates approximately 20% of the electricity for Dominion's customers at the North End plant. North End produces most cost-effective energy, and it does so around the clock. Dominion's customers today are benefiting from the decisions made by the company 40 years ago when they constructed North End 1 and 2 and their sister units at the Surrey Power Station. The proposed North End 3 project would generate enough energy to power 350,000 homes. It is quite possibly the largest economic development project in the history of this Commonwealth. I'm here to tell you that Dominion has been approaching this project very seriously. As the project team has told our county's leadership many times, this is the most important project in the company's 100-year history. North End 3 will have a service life for 60 years. It is designed to minimize water usage and produce external effects such as air pollution and air emissions. It goes without saying that Louisa County's leadership is eager to support North End 3, as it would provide immense economic development benefits not just to Louisa County but throughout the entire Commonwealth. Every customer Dominion that pays a bill should support continued development of North End 3 because it is the company's only alternative to natural gas when it comes to round-the-clock power generation. As we know, coal is the background of power for many decades. Coal plants are no longer approved by the EPA, permitted by the EPA. Dominion opened one of the newest and certainly cleanest coal units in the country just before those regulations on the moratorium took effect. Natural gas is a fine technology, but it is not to be the only round-the-clock source of power that Dominion relies on. That is why North End 3 is so important to keep a balanced portfolio of fuel product. We appreciate your time and taking consideration of Louisa County's comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Those who speak in favor.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Ryan Dunn, Virginia Chamber of Commerce. I want to start off by saying North End 3 is an important project for Virginia's business community. We recognize that Dominion has invested a significant amount into the development of North End 3, and we are supportive of the continued development of this project. Blueprint Virginia identified the need for continued investment in new power generation and in a mixed portfolio of generation fuels. Nuclear power has been an important part of Virginia for over 4 decades, and it will be that much more important for our future. North End 3 is important to the business community, and while finding the best way to get the project done in the most consumer-friendly way. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Ben Massey with Westvaco Corporation, and we support this effort. We think that utilities should be able to recover proven costs. It costs a lot, as you've already heard, to put in place one of these nuclear facilities. And in the future, if we have only gas to depend on, that's going to be a problem because we're exporting gas out of the U.S. The prices are going to go up. We need to leave all of the above options open on energy. Thank you.
Those in favor. Those in speaking opposition.
Mr. Chairman, gentlemen of the committee, Steve Henry from Shipbuilding. It took a long time, and I may take a moment as well. I hope not to take too much of your time. First, Senator Norman, 7 years ago, you and I worked very closely on that statute. I appreciate the fact that in 2007, you seem to like what we've done. And I'm sorry to see that we're taking it apart here in Virginia today. The shipyard builds big nuclear things, and the government pays us a whole lot of money. But they don't pay it to us. until we actually promise to build a ship, until we actually start building the ship, until we actually start doing things that, they don't pay it to us on spec. Dominion is asking you to buy this plant on spec. I did not hear anybody mention that they're actually going to do it, just that they're working on it. No promises have been made, no permits have been received. When they do that, no one will be happier to see them do it than the Green do. What they're asking for is to pay for it now before they've even started. And I didn't hear anybody promise they were going to do it. I want to mention two numbers, two very big numbers, neither of which have been mentioned yet so far. The first number is $560 million, and the second number is $420 million. $560 million is the amount that Dominion Power is overcharging its customers in the rate period we're in right now. That is a number that came from the commission. That is a number that came from looking at their books in the 2013 rate case, and it determined that the rates exceed their needs and their profit by $560 million. Now, under the system we set up in that 2007 statute, which I no longer support because it's changed on, but that 2007 statute, when they do that, 70% of that money is returned to the ratepayers. When they over-earn, they return a portion of that money, and I'm fine with it. They first got to keep 40%, now they changed it to 30%. But they get to keep a good chunk of it, and I thought 30% or 40% would be enough of an incentive for them. Apparently, the incentive they want is 100%, so we'll talk about that. If that's money that you would be receiving and your customers in Dominion territory, your constituents in Dominion territory would be receiving, if we just leave this statute alone. The second number I want to mention is $420 million. $420 million. That's the number we're talking about, and no one on that side mentioned that number. That's the 70% of the $600 million that they're trying to recover from the ratepayers in this 2-year period where we are right now. $420 million. Now, $420 million is a pretty good chunk out of $560 million. Basically, what that means is when this bill passes, the SEC will look at their books, will count that as a cost, just like everything else they do, and say, you know what? They didn't over-earn, and the ratepayers don't get any rebates. They got them in 2009, they got them in 11, but they're not going to get them in 2015. And the SEC will conclude they didn't earn more than their promised 10 point, I guess the range now is to 10.7. If they exceed 10.7, then the SEC can say, oh, that's one check mark, do it again, and we can lower the rates. The rates are too high. We've been trying to get a case where they can lower the rates. This basically, as far as I'm concerned, is not about North End of 3. This is about that $420 million and that $560 million. No one has promised to build this plant. When they promise to build the plant, it'll put me in an interesting position because I want to see the plant built. And there may be ways to pay for it. But in 2007, we set up the statute with the rate adjustment clauses. We said they'd get paid for 20 years or 25 years to pay this plant off. And we said they would get we initially said 200 basis points of extra profit. That was the incentive, not early payment. This basically pits, very simple. The person right now, as Dominion builds this plant, as Dominion develops this plant and discusses whether or not to build this plant, they are risking their stockholders' money. A large amount of their stockholders' money is at risk right now. And the risk would be that they may decide not to do this. And when they decide not to do this, it won't come down on the ratepayers, not entirely. It'll come down on the stockholders as well. You are taking $400 million out of the pockets of ratepayers to basically to reduce the risk on your stockholders. That's what this bill does. I wish you will hand the bill.
Others who speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Edward L. Petrini on behalf of the Virginia Committee for Fair Utility Rates and the Old Dominion Committee for Fair Utility Rates, consisting of large industrial customers, Virginia Power and Appalachian Power. We also oppose the provisions that Mr. Hanner was just referring to for the reasons that he described. What is happening here is that Virginia Power is asking you, in effect, to cram a lot of costs, $420 million, into a 2-year period that will be reviewed by the State Corporation Commission and Virginia Power's next biennial review case. When it conducts that review, Virginia Power's earnings will be much lower because costs now have been forced into that 2-year period. So when the commission looks at earnings, it will say, in all likelihood, there are no excess earnings. Mr. Hayner indicated the rates now, based on the Commission's order in November, are designed to collect $280 million per year, $560 million over 2 years, more than Virginia Power's cost, including fair return. So when we ram a lot of those costs into a 2-year period, so much cost, the likelihood of those excess earnings being found in the next biennial review is much, much lower. If the earnings are much lower, if there are no excess earnings, then there are no rebates to customers of any portion of those excess earnings. And in the following biennial review, in 2017, the Commission lacks the authority in that case to reduce rates, notwithstanding the fact that the rates continue to be well in excess of the costs and reasonable return. Virginia Power has made much of the need for encouragement of nuclear plant construction, but you are well aware that the law already contains significant incentives in that regard. There is a 100 basis point return on equity incentive for new nuclear construction. When the Attorney General's office conducted its analysis in 2012, the 200 basis point incentive was worth about more than $1.8 billion. So I'm assuming that a 100 basis point incentive, which is in place right now, is roughly half of it, in the order of $900 million already. The customer's going to have to pay that money. That's real money. There are numerous provisions in this act that are intended to encourage construction, that are intended to give assurances of cost recovery. There's a right to recover costs. There are rate adjustment clauses that are deliberately put in there to allow for the recovery of costs. There are floors on the return on equity. So the question becomes, how much incentive, how much additional incentive should we be talking about? Should we sacrifice another $500 million in the next biennial review? Or another $500 million after that? Because the Commission, again, will be disempowered from reducing rates. The Act requires now that the utility doesn't start commencing recovery costs until the plant goes into commercial operation. Now, what you're being asked to do is approve a measure that would commence recovery of those costs, not only before the plant goes into commercial operation, but before the utility has even decided to build it. How many of you have businesses that allow you to begin to depreciate your new store, let us say, before you even decide to build it?
Mr. Chair, I'd take a crack at that question. I thought it was generally said the county principals, Mr. Stosh's account, but I thought it was gap that these development costs had to be written off and could not be, understanding the county procedure, could not be amortized over the project.
These development costs normally would be included in plant in service for regulatory accounting purposes. And the Act prohibits the recovery of those costs, and this is in case 6, I believe, prior to commercial operation.
Mr. Chairman, I thought the question you asked was distinct about our own businesses. What we're really trying to do here is to align for this purpose of this, the general accepted county principles for our own businesses, which was the question Mr. Chairman that he asked, to Dominion in this case. Is that right, Mr. Chairman?
No, what this bill is intended to do is to change the regulatory accounting that would otherwise be required by the law.
Mr. Chair, just one comment. It's not consistent with GAAP accounting.
Regulatory accounting and GAAP accounting